Hello, we are live, everyone. Welcome to Wellness Wednesdays with CJ. It's me, your girl, Christian Jackson, the daddy issues expert. I am here to bring you mental health and wellness life hacks, okay, as a licensed therapist in South Carolina. My goal at Couch with Christian is just to share information with you guys. I think you should have access to these life hacks. Just because I'm licensed and been to all these trainings don't mean the information is just for me. And so I like to give that to you guys each and every Wednesday that I feel like it. I'm not even going to lie. Sometimes I get a little burnt out and I might need a break. And I'm going to model for you how to do that. So, whatever Wednesday that I'm not here, it's just because I need a little breather. So, I am the daddy issues expert. You may be wondering why this is on the screen or why Christian calls yourself that. It's because I wrote the books on it. So, here are my babies. The Daddy Issues book, Daddy Issues: How to Detangle from the Sins of Our Fathers, by me. And it's workbook, right? And I don't even really ever say the whole title. That's probably the first time I've said it in a while. But I wrote these books as a manual for women who are dealing with relationship issues. So whether that be relationships with yourself, do you trust yourself? Do you believe in yourself? What's happening in these relationships with other people where you're more intimate? Do you allow people to get close enough to you to be intimate? Are you parenting out of your trauma? Are you popping off with your boss? Are you kind of really struggling with those abandonment and rejection issues? Then the book is definitely for you. There's that and a lot more, right? We're even talking about attachment, where you really question how you show up in your relationships. You learn about attachment style. So about those walls you put up, or if you're the woman that says, I don't do girls, then this book is for you, because I'm giving you those practical skills in between each chapter so that you can have something tangible to even measure your progress as you work through the things I'm giving to you. So I'm telling my story in the book, but then also other women, because I want you to be able to see yourself. So the purpose of the Daddy Issues movement is to diminish the stigma that comes with daddy issues. Okay. I give you a whole definition and a diagnosis, if you will, because I'm a therapist and that's just how I conceptualize things. I let you know what daddy issues are. What are those symptoms? And some of them I've already named: the abandonment and trust issues, the anxiety that comes with it, the guilt and the shame of whatever end of the spectrum you are with your daddy issues. And so we carry a lot of a burden with that kind of stuff. And so we also carry a lot of bad names. What do they call us when with daddy issues? Sluts and whores and gold diggers and all the things. And so I am here to give us different language, if you will, clinical language even, that says we are women who have dealt with emotional trauma like most people have. So let's look at that and increase the empathy when it comes to what daddy issues are. Secondly, I want to say that what the daddy issues is not is an excuse. Okay. You ain't finna come on here and be like, hey, I bumped into Christian Jackson on Wellness Wednesdays, and she said that I can pop off at my man because I got daddy issues. That is not what this is. Okay. So women who have worked with me, people who are understanding of what the daddy issues movement is, as members of the couch crew, you know that when you transcend daddy issues, as I like to call it, you come out on the other side and you are a woman who holds yourself accountable because you understand your traumas. You know when you are being triggered and you say, yo, I'm going to take responsibility for what I did, because you are responsible for how you react. So that is what the Daddy Issues movement is about. I have a group that started again for the second time this year on Monday, September 13th, 2021, depending on when you watch this. This is only a couple of days ago. So we got together and we are working through the workbook live. And I'm really excited to be able to share about that. If you are already part of the couch crew, you know all about that. So I'm not going to bore you guys with that today, because I have a special guest. I'm really liking this. Now, you get to hear from me every week, but when I bring people on here, it is a purpose. It's for a reason. And I really, really think this is a special edition of Wellness Wednesdays. No pressure to my guests, but y'all need to meet the man who literally helped me self-publish my book. This is it, y'all. I had to bring him to you because literally right before we were even on tonight, he was dropping his gems. Okay. And so I'm going to allow him to introduce himself, but I want you guys to know that this conversation we're having tonight, we went over like a whole little script of questions that I have, but I'm going to let spirit lead wherever it's going to go. And I know that you're going to get whatever you need to out of it for the next 30-ish minutes, because we're going to talk about how this writing thing is part of the healing process. It's not a small part. It is a major part of what I do in therapy. And so Gio is not only someone who helps people write books, but he just has all the motivational things to say and just lifts me. And I'm so full every time we get to talk. So without further ado, here is Mr. excuse me, Gio DeReese. Welcome.
What's up? What's up? What's up? I'm super glad to be on the couch.
Yes, on the
Metaphorically speaking. Yeah.
I love it. I'm so excited, y'all. This is going to be amazing. I'm super pumped. I'm going to let you just introduce yourself, Gio. Tell the people who you are, what you do. Start wherever you want to.
Yeah. So I am Gio DeReese from Brooklyn, New York, Haitian American. And yeah, I gotta go and drop all of that. I had somebody literally come from my life. We're like, why you ain't telling them you Haitian? Like, I am
Oh
Haitian,
my goodness.
people. All right, I'm Haitian. Right?
Let them know.
Let them know. And I've, for the past, what is it now? It's 2021. I became an author in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I wanted to be an author was I saw all the people who are motivating the masses. And I was like, man, I want to motivate the masses too. And so I was like, what do they have that I don't have? Like, they got a message, I got a message. Okay. And the one thing we didn't have in common was when I read all their biographies, like their biographies on their websites and stuff about them, they had author in their bio and I didn't. And I was like, no, this can't happen. Like, we're gonna have to switch this up right now. And so in 2014, I wrote my first book, The Thirst is Real. Mm-hmm. And then, and that was amazing, journey in it of itself to be able to do that and help people to identify how do they maximize their full potential by finding the very thing that lights them up on fire. Like, oh my gosh, this is the thing that if you told me that I had to pay to do it, I would willingly pay. If you told me that I had to go to jail for doing this activity, I'd go to jail a couple of times. Like, that thing that you can't help, like you can't help yourself. It's like that. Like, okay, Christian, like, honestly, if somebody told me I'm gonna arrest you for being a motivational speaker, I'd be in jail. Like, I can't help myself. That's a part of my being. That's the thing that God has put inside of me to do. So I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. And so that was the Thirst is Real journey. And then 2015, I was working with a mentor of mine, working for him. And he was like, Gio, I saw you wrote your book. That's amazing. I think it's an amazing tool for anybody who has something to say and wants to impact people. And so I got this group of business entrepreneurs. I want you to open up this lane for them by helping them write a book. And at the time I was working for him. So it wasn't necessarily like I had a choice, but I'm glad he made the choice for me. I'm glad he suggested it, and kind of like
strongly suggested.
And I did it. And so I was able to go and do that starting in 2015. And now to this point, we're like probably like 56 self-published books that I've had a hand in one way, shape, or form, whether it's coaching or me writing it myself and being a ghostwriter. And then last year, the pandemic came and I decided to go and create a program called First Book Done, where I now teach people how to write their own books versus me writing it for them so that they can go and be empowered. They could get the skill set to be able to go ahead and write books. And I'm so proud that you were one of the people that got a chance to go ahead and work with to see you go from an idea, take everything you've been doing from the counseling you've been doing, and now package it in a different format to be able to go and serve more people who may never be in South Carolina or may never be where you are to be able to have that impact, but your book can travel to places that your clinic may not.
Yes. Thank you. That's a great elevator speech. I'm working on mine. I feel like it's different every week.
It's prep. The more you say it, the key thing is remembering what you keep on repeating, because that's the stuff that needs to stay. The stuff that keeps on changing, that's the stuff you got to think about eliminating.
Yes, I have my notepad out still to the side, taking notes as you say things. So thank you. I hope you guys enjoy, whether you're watching live or on the replay. Today, we're talking about, roughly, I like to say I have a plan, but, I just go with whatever. But really kind of how healing is really, I think, a huge part of healing. and going along a journey where you're in self-discovery, like there has to be some kind of journaling piece to it. It's what I tell my clients. It's how we get our thoughts down. And when I went to a training, one of my own mentors told me that when we write, we can't lie to ourselves. And I was like,
Mm.
oh, what do you think of that? Just as a random
You know what it
feedback.
is?
Uh-huh.
It's interesting you say that when we write, we can't lie to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
That is the very reason why people don't write, because they want to keep on telling the lies.
Okay. Oh, see, try to run from it.
Yeah.
And
So
that
it's like, if I can cover it,
mm-hmm.
and so what happens is they are telling the truth they want to believe, even though it's not true. And if
Mm-hmm.
they write it down, it's like there's a certain thing about like the act of writing something down that makes it
Mm-hmm.
permanent, right? So you have the Declaration of Independence was written, right? The
Mm-hmm.
laws
Mm-hmm.
are written down. It's not like, hey, you just pass the laws verbally. There's
Mm-hmm.
some document that you can go back to. And so we don't want to own the lie, and writing it down is a sense of ownership, right? They say, like the Bible says, write the vision and make it plain. It didn't
Mm-hmm.
say just talk about it and talk
Let
about
it
it.
just
Like,
go. Yeah.
like so now I
You know,
like
I
that
think
actually.
that is deep when you say that, because you think about like how our body just remembers things. And that's what I say a lot when we're doing when I'm doing trauma work, and your body remembers when you were nervous that time when you thought you were going to die, or more than nervous. And so it's that muscle memory that comes with literally putting pen to pad, and now I
Yeah,
guess fingers to the keyboard, and it's like, dang, now my
right.
body's going to remember that time I wrote that book. I can remember where I was when I was writing certain chapters even. And you
Hmm.
know, that stuff is, it was a little triggering. You know, I don't know about you and your experience in writing your books. And that's kind of what I wanted to start with, as far as like your personal experiences in regards to writing. Like, how did that help you get your thoughts out? Because right now I'm avoiding my journal, because so what you said just now is true. Like, there's
Yeah,
some things I got in my head, I'm like, nah, if I write it down, it's too real. So tell me about that process for you.
yeah. For me, honestly, like I think we get so many different thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
and what ends up happening with all these thoughts when we don't. I would compare it to like a shoelace where you triple and quadruple knot it, and
Mm-hmm.
it feels almost impossible to take it out.
Mm-hmm.
Writing for me is the release of that tension,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
and and it doesn't work. Here's the thing. I will say this: if you don't really want to relieve yourself of the tension, you're not going to write. Let's just call a spade a spade.
Oh, right.
But
Call it what
for,
it
you know
is.
what I'm saying, like you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. You're not
Mm-hmm.
like, it's easier for me to put my head in the sand and act like nothing else is happening than for me to go directly at the problem itself. But for me, writing it was like, it was definitely therapeutic, because it's like it gives me a chance to like go down memory lane, and not everything I write about is negative. Like I think sometimes we think like, oh, I'm gonna journal
Yeah.
and I'm gonna write all the negative things. Like a lot of my
Mm-hmm.
books are inspiring. So it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
like a triggering thing for me as it
Mm-hmm.
was uh remember like things that I should have been grateful for, that it just was like, it happened. And so in
Mm-hmm.
writing it over, I'm like, oh snap. And Steve Jobs has this one quote where he says, we can never connect the dots going forward, but we can always connect them going back. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I'm writing, I'm able to trace back to like, why did God make me do 7 or 8 years of marketing for?
Mm-hmm.
And then look back and be like, because now I'm an author, and the very thing that is the Achilles heel for authors is now my strength.
Yeah.
But if I didn't write it down, I would have never had something chronologically to see that it was 7 years, that it was, I had a C- in college in marketing, but I'm still very good at it because I was able to develop the skill
Mm-hmm.
set being under mentorship. So the
Mm-hmm.
writing part of it, I think for me has been very good to be able to have a place to document it,
Mm-hmm.
a place for me to detangle some of the stuff that are knots. And again, they don't always mean that it's a bad thing, but I need that tension released so that
Mm-hmm.
I can have the flexibility to adapt to the very next thing that I hope for.
Yes. Oh my goodness. That is so good. You said a lot there, because first of all, shout out to detangle and entanglements because that's a tagline of my book. That's literally what
Mm.
why my bio, or my, I guess the tagline or
The
whatever it is on my
subline
title
is like
is.
detangling,
Yeah.
detangling from the
Yeah.
strings of our
Detangle.
fathers.
hmm
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah,
I had to go back there and say, let me unlearn some things. And it's that going back to journaling and how we can't lie to ourselves when we write. When I wrote
yeah.
things down and then I would wait like a few weeks before I went back because I had to relive something, then I would go back and see what I was thinking. And sometimes, and even when I tell my clients, say things out loud and like, did you hear you say what you just said? Like, does it make sense?
Mm.
Does it resonate? Because, words do have power, but I think writing helps us take some of that back because you can literally rescript things, go back and say, well, that didn't even sound right. And I was how old when I said this thing? And I've been hanging on to this thought process and this narrative for a long time. And so writing, I think, kind of gives us that chance to be able to say, well, where am I now? And I like what you said too. It reminds me of like a gratitude journal.
Yeah.
Even the book that I have of yours, Geo's Gems, it seems to be just like you said, just motivational pieces and things that keep me pushing when I have certain moments going on. Because, and I wonder for that project, I guess specifically, is that just you kind of riding on the other side of something painful, or something that you just learned when you're doing the motivational pieces? How does that come? Where does that come from?
It comes from me overcoming a hurdle. So
Yeah.
it's
hmm
something of what was the thing that gave me the epiphany to get out of the valley,
Yeah.
right? So those gems are like a gem that says, fix your roof when it's sunny
hmm
outside versus fixing it when it rains. No one wants to fix the roof when it's raining. It's too late. It's the water's coming
hmm
inside the house.
hmm
That came from me getting anxiety from always
hmm
trying to, and frustration from fixing something when I should have, I knew I should have done it before. Like when
Yeah.
it wasn't bad, I should have been working. But I work when it's bad, you kind of dealing with the emotional the toll of, I don't really like, I really want to rest. I want to relax. I want to like sit down and be in my
hmm
feelings. And now it's raining, and when it rains, it pours, kind of thing.
Right.
Versus like, let me fix it when it's sunny so that when it rains, it doesn't stay pouring in my house. Like
Exactly. Ongoing
so that's
work,
where that
right?
gem. Yeah, it's
hmm
ongoing, it's continuous. It's there's so many gems in there where I talk about like getting ahead of the problem so that when
hmm
the problem comes, that the problems becomes like kind of more of what you see in your
hmm
rear view mirror where it doesn't appear as large. And so
hmm
all those motivational gems come from either an account that I've had where I overcame something, or I read
hmm
someone else's account, and sometimes just their account alone gives me enough wisdom to know don't repeat what they just did. So
Okay.
that's where they came from.
Learn from my mistakes. And I see some people
Right.
popping in and out, and I want to say hey to y'all. Go ahead and shout us out in the chat. Let us know you're here. Because we're talking about how just the writing journey, how powerful that is for us who are trying to overcome something, have more insight about stuff. So for you and me, it comes pretty natural for us to write, to journal,
Mm-hmm.
to type, whatever it is, even to speak. That comes pretty natural to both of us. So for the person who has a hard time with that, whether they actually want to write the book, they have a book inside of them, they don't even want to journal. I have to sell it when I'm talking about it to my therapy clients. But what is it
Yeah.
that you have to say for people who have a hard time making that leap from like it being in here or even in your heart to actually putting it on paper?
I think there's a narrative that we have to when it's being put on paper. And so whenever we think it has to be put on paper, we think it has to be proper.
Mm,
And because of that, we don't do it, right? It's like, I'm not going to put it down unless it's perfect. Not realizing that you should never try to write from perfect. You should write towards perfection, which
mm,
means by writing over and over again, it sounds better. Like
mm-hmm.
it doesn't sound great the first time. And so I think the reality is that from schooling, we were told, oh, you wrote that and made a mistake, erase that and don't submit that work to somebody like that.
Yeah.
Then we realized that we never got proper perspective of it's okay to write a mistake or to make an error. And so because of that, we now need to write perfectly. And so when you say journal,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's private to them, to the person, I'm still thinking of the fact that it has to be done a certain way. Right. I don't know if you've ever experienced this where you tell
Yes.
someone to journal and their first question is, well, how do I journal? And they're like,
Yes.
pen,
Yeah.
paper.
Pen and pad. laptop.
That's
I
it. And
don't
your
know.
laptop, maybe your phone, a little note section. And
Yes.
what they're really telling you is not, they want to know how to do it properly, right? They don't
Yes.
realize like the process is not one-sided. It's not do it Christian's way, do it Geo's
Exactly.
way, do it
Mm-hmm.
that way. The whole purpose of journaling is so that you can see yourself
Mm-hmm.
and be able to slow down just enough so you can be able to give yourself take self-inventory, self-reflection, and be able to come up with an idea on your own, because I would argue those ideas are the ones that stick the longest. We will
Mm-hmm.
always defend our ideology before we go and defend someone else's. And so by being able to go and say, I don't need it to be perfect, I just need to get started with it, I have found that has been helpful. And what I would do is with the people I've worked with, is I've told them to put a time on it. Because if you make them journal for too long, the
Yes.
part of the brain that says this ain't right is gonna kick in.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
when they're like, I can't write, I said, all right, we'll just write for 60 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. And by doing something like that, they automatically can say, oh, wow, I did. Gio, guess what? You said 60 seconds, I did 3 minutes. Gio, you
Mm-hmm.
said 5 minutes, I did 10.
Mm-hmm.
But they need the time constraint makes them turn off the part of their brain that
Mm-hmm.
makes them so analytical and so, what's the word? I forgot what my therapist said, like so self-condemning.
Oh yeah.
Um, you're right, we become self-condemning, and he was like, yo, like take that barrier out so that you
Mm-hmm.
can have the freedom to be able to write what it is that you need, because you really do need that outlet, right? Most people
Yes.
use it in other unhealthy ways, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
drinking,
Mm-hmm.
overindulging in things that are not necessarily conducive with the things that you desire
Mm-hmm.
long term. So please, like I would tell anybody who's watching this right now, like don't worry
Mm-hmm.
about perfection. My mentor always told
Yes.
me, and it's in the Geo's Gems book, progression over perfection is the
Mm-hmm.
key.
Yes, I heard someone say that the other day. I was listening to some podcast, or maybe it was church, but she was saying that practice makes progress at the very least. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you were talking about your strategy that you share with the people, like in your groups and in your programs and stuff, because I wanted to
Yeah.
ask you what you thought about writer's block. Do you believe in that? I feel like you've mentioned that before, but I want you to talk a little bit
Yeah.
about that.
No, that's a good question. I
Mm-hmm.
do believe in writer's block to a
Mm-hmm.
degree.
You're right.
Um, right, to a degree. And when I say writer's block, it goes back to um, someone saying, I'm not able to communicate. There's a lack of clarity somewhere, and because of the lack of clarity, I now have a block. Right,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
and I would argue, if you really had writer's block and I told you to write your name, you shouldn't be able to write it. Like you like right, like it's that's like
Facts.
it's
I like
writing.
that.
So it's not that you have writer's block, because what happens
Mm-hmm.
is if we misdiagnose what we have, we take the wrong medicine.
Yes. Say that.
Right?
Yes.
So if we're gonna say I got a writer's block, well then writer's block will lead you to believe you don't have the ability to write. So
At
how would you
all.
ever write the
Right.
book? Yeah, you'll
Mm-hmm.
be like, I got writer's block. It's not
Mm-hmm.
me. It's the block. I'm innately born like this. No,
Mm-hmm.
because if I told
Mm-hmm.
you to write about something else, that if I said, hey, Christian, tell me um, a story that everyone knows, and I just told you to write the story,
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't have a problem writing the story, because now you're in a place of it's not personal.
Take yourself
It's
out of it.
so yeah, you take
Mm-hmm.
yourself out of it. So I know you talk about that too in terms of being
Mm-hmm.
objective. It's
Mm-hmm.
like you'll take yourself out of it so that you can go and free yourself to go ahead and write. And so I always think about like, what is it that's the real issue? What's the root? My wife always says, like, what's the
Mm-hmm.
root cause of this? Right. So
Mm-hmm.
the root cause is I lack clarity. So the thing we need to do to solve that is to identify what do we want to write about. And at the very least, you may not know all the details, but do you
Mm-hmm.
at least know the direction? So you may
Yeah.
not know, if I told you, hey, Christian, you want to go to California, I may not
Mm-hmm.
tell you the turn by turn, but I can definitely tell you from where you live, go west.
Right. At the very
Right?
least.
Go west. Go west. You're gonna hit it at some point. Go west,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what people are looking for. And I think that's where before you write, there's this thing called positioning yourself. Kind of like if you were going to the club and you want to be nice, and so you do a little pre-gaming.
Right.
Pre-game your writing by ensuring that you already know what you're going to write about. This morning, I actually wrote a new book I'm working on. It's called Geo's Gems for Graduates.
Oh, cool.
And I was stuck. I had a writer's block, if you will, right? And I was like, why do you have writer's block? And I was like, because I don't know what I want to say. like I don't know what I'm going to be talking about. So then I looked at the outline that was provided to me in terms of what gems to write about. And I was like, oh, okay. Which one do I have clarity on? There was a list of 5 topics. The one that I had the most clarity on, that's what I wrote on. And 2,000 words later, in 20 minutes, I'm done.
Right.
But that's because I had the clarity in it. So I would say that if you're not clear, don't try to start writing, because then you'll label it as writer's block when it's not writer's block. You
and
just
then
need
set
to sit
yourself
down
up
a
for
little
failure.
longer. Yeah, and then you quit. And then that book that was meant to change somebody's life never actually comes out. That book where somebody's saying, I'm the only person going through this, and your book lets them know that there's a me too out there. Like there's someone else who emotionally is going through the same thing as I am. Like that book never comes out. And I just would hate for you misdiagnosing the problem to be the reason why you and the person doesn't get there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's it. And then one other tip I'll give you is that if you're adamant that you have writer's block, change the method of how you're trying to communicate. What I mean by that is some people have anxiety when they come to a computer screen because there's this bully called the cursor that is literally going like this,
blinking at
you, and it's saying, hey, Christian, we were here yesterday. You know how this goes.
Yes.
You're going to come all inspired saying, today's the day I'm going to do it. And then tomorrow, I'm going to meet you again, and I'm going to remind you that this page looks exactly the way it did for the last 3 years.
Dang.
Right? And so that anxiety happens. And so when that happens, we need to get away from the anxiety long enough to be able to create momentum so that we're not starting this journey from scratch. And so what I tell people is you probably don't have speaker block. So speak your book, right? You can speak your book and then get it transcribed so that when you come back to your computer, you could tell the cursor, hey, I'm about to download 20,000 words. I spoke for 3 hours yesterday.
Take that. Yes, I love that.
Let's go. Go ahead, cursor. What you want to do now? And then the cursor is like all tired and it's doing this slowly because it sees letters next to it and all that extra stuff. Right? So,
I love the imagery. I love it.
You can change your format.
Yes, I love that. That is, I've been told using the voice memo is super helpful for a lot of writers. And I haven't yet played with that, but I like that idea. So I may actually try to do that because I'm working on a new book myself.
Geo's Gems was I recorded it in 6 hours.
Really?
Yeah, I recorded it in 6 hours. It is thick. I purposely was like, this book I want it to feel a certain way in your hand. So I was like, I'm gonna go for it. I'm going for it this time.
Yes, matter of fact, I'm gonna go get it.
It's like thin. Yeah, go get it. Like
I'm going to get it.
The first one was thin, and I was like, nah, I could put 2 of these in this one. So I'm like, let me go and make sure I write a little longer one. Let me build my endurance a little bit. And
yes,
so
you guys, this is it.
Yes, there go that guy.
There he is. Yes.
But it was voice memos. I sat down, I outlined everything, and then I recorded it. It took me about 6 hours to record. And by the time I was done with the 6 hours, I was like 45,000 words.
Yes. Oh, I'm going to try that.
So, yeah, try it. Outline your stuff and then just say, I'm going to talk about this until I can't talk about it no more. So then you can get the momentum and then it becomes fun.
I just want y'all to know mine is signed. I just want y'all to know that.
Yeah, it's personalized.
Yes, author of Daddy Issues is what mine says. Yes. I
You
love
know,
that. I think
so
I'm gonna try that
yeah,
voice memo thing. I'm gonna have to call you about that
try it, try it, try it, try
and
it.
figure it out. Because my next question, like, I guess, like, if you guys haven't caught on this whole, what I'm getting, if I can like reflect back about how writing can be useful in just kind of getting out of our own way and trying to get to where we want to be, the healing process, the journey, whatever you want to call it. The tips that Gio has shared with us so far are just to get out of your comfort zone, do it anyway,
Hmm.
and believe that your message actually counts. Like, you have a voice too, and that someone else needs your message. And so, the whole, when you mention, like, someone else has that issue, me too, there's a lot of shame in not knowing what to do. Like, my clients will come and feel like, oh gosh, Christian, just like you said, I don't know what to write. What do you mean journal? I don't even know where to start. They want to get
Yeah.
an A in therapy or something, and I'm just like, yo sis, like, if you need a prompt, if you need a prompt, I can give you one, and that's fine, and then watch what you do with it. But you actually have to be in a space where you are ready to, again, kind of face the truth. And so,
Hmm.
Gio, you mentioned anxiety, and I talked about before, maybe a few weeks ago, about how we can use anxiety in a healthy way. It does not have to debilitate us. And so the healing process is not easy, but it sounds like what you're saying, Gio, you have everything that you need. It's just a matter of actually doing it. And so I'm hoping that you guys are hearing this, because nothing that I give you is like a magic wand, but I'm hoping that you're open to doing it. And then another thing is the objective piece, because a lot of times in therapy, when I'm talking about, I've actually counseled a couple of writers, and it's so interesting how I have to speak people's language. Like, I talk about video games to like anime to all kind of stuff in therapy.
Yeah.
It's whatever I need to connect. And Harry Potter is one of my favorite things. My son is waiting for me right now to finish reading Chamber of Secrets, because we're rereading them, and he's reading them for the first time, but we're reading it together, our 10-year-old. And one of my clients wrote like this amazing fan fiction of, like, in the Harry Potter universe, because she was working through her own traumas through but she was blocked because she was so close to the material. And she wrote this
Mm.
beautiful, just like, story about, like, her journey through the Harry Potter universe as a witch, and what is her spell when she feels nervous, and, like, really kind of a beautiful story. And I'm telling y'all, like, that was part of her healing journey. And I tell that story a lot, not with a lot of details, because in case she published it, I don't want everybody to know, and that's a HIPAA
Yeah.
violation. But I do want y'all to know, like, even doing something fun like that has really kind of taken people out of themselves. And I did want you to talk about, before you go, I guess, as we wrap up, when you are coaching people, I think you kind of already answered the question, but what would you say for people who need to get out of their heads when it comes to writing?
I would say switch the subject.
Mm,
And when I what because I think I just got to get you the momentum, right? Because it's like what I'm fighting when I'm coaching somebody is the fact that they have years of experience writing before they met me. And that has done something to them in one way, shape, or form, right? So I've had some
mm-hmm,
clients who are like, they have worked in corporate for 20 years, and so they know how to speak like their organization, but they don't
mm.
necessarily know how to speak like themselves.
Oh, find their
And
voice.
so, yeah,
Mm-hmm,
to find their voice, because their voice, not intentionally, but I work for this, I represent this organization, so I need to speak like them. That's
mm-hmm,
the voice I need to have. But if you do that long enough, the muscle memory of what you sound like is gone, right?
mm-hmm,
And so now I have to retrain it. And so the way to retrain it is don't attack it directly. Because
mm-hmm,
if I say write harder,
mm-hmm.
it's like putting a circle peg in a square hole.
Square
It's like
hole,
it's
yeah.
gonna only gonna make them more frustrated. And
Yeah.
so when I tell them, like, okay, well, let's switch the subject, right? Let's create a narrative, some momentum, so that the narrative can now change. Where you're like, I was able to freely write for an X amount of period of time, and then come back to the matter at hand that we was trying to address. So
Mm,
I'll get them to write if they're struggling with writing. I will. You ever had those friends who always know how to give you advice for your problems, but
child,
they don't know
yes.
how to eat their own food that they cook?
Yes.
So what I put them in is in the position
Mm-hmm,
to be that friend, as opposed to them writing about themselves, and
mm-hmm,
then just tell them you just wrote as if you were talking to you, but you thought you were writing to someone else. That's
Mm-hmm.
essentially what you needed to hear, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
if I could just get them to think about the problem differently
Mm-hmm.
and get them to see it from from the subject, like it's not about me. The subject has changed.
Mm-hmm.
It's about
Mm-hmm.
that person that got that problem, not about me with procrastination. That problem got that person got procrastination problems.
Yes.
Then read that, and you're like, and here's what's interesting. They'll tell that story so well that you're like, man, this sounds like you really know a lot about this. And then on the back end of it, they're like, because I literally wrote about myself. And they don't necessarily know
Exactly.
that they did that, but it's like they needed to be told that you're in the passenger seat so that they can go and kind of relax and release the pressure of having to ride a certain way. And then tell them, all right, you know what? Now get in the driver's seat. Like you took this thing
Yeah, you're
long enough.
ready. Come on.
You're ready to go, right? So I think that's the
Mm-hmm.
part that kind of frees us to be able
Mm-hmm.
to say, "Oh snap, I see what you're saying now." So maybe sometimes it's giving commentary on something versus you being the content itself. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe if you're not able to create the content, provide context, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have all the context, provide the content. Like it's just like just do the opposites so
Mm-hmm.
that you can go
Mm-hmm.
and get the train on the tracks so it can move.
Yes, it's like switching your point of view or your position.
That's it. That's the
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah.
It's just about vantage point. If I could change
Mm-hmm.
your vantage point, you see it a little bit differently. You see it a little bit
Mm-hmm.
differently. You now have new stimulus, and you'll respond to those versus the habits that you already have that are hardwired that
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to be able to override quickly enough for you to be able to get the momentum you need to write.
Mm-hmm. And I think just I'm thinking about just how when I'm doing therapy that trauma perspective that I try to share with people is like this is your body remembers and is reacting a certain way because it's used to doing it. You're really good at avoiding people. You're a master. So of course, when you come in here to therapy, then it's a little scary for you to let your walls down. You're talking to me, you don't know me like that. And even if we've been in therapy for a few months, then there's a hesitation because you've had 30, 40 years of avoiding people. So it's just about
Mm,
exercising a new muscle. And so if you have always spoken a certain way, like you said, in your job and a corporate voice or whatever it is, then, just be patient and give yourself grace. I think that's what I'm taking for what you're saying.
yeah,
Because it's not that the skill set is not there. It's there. It's just not really as loud or as strong because it's just like working out a muscle. Because Christian ain't finna go
right.
and bench press 1,000 pounds right now. That's not what I do. Like, like you have to kind of work your way up to that. So I think what I'm getting from a lot of what you're saying today is pushing and challenging yourself and believing that the skill set is there. Like it's totally there. That's what you bring out of people. I think that's what you have helped me see in my writing journey. Even though I came to you when the book was done, I just didn't know what to do with
Hmm.
it. It
Yeah,
was a mindset shift for me that you helped me with. Um, Actually believing that it could actually happen. Like it's been a dream of mine to write a book since I was little. And so watching you in your group, being a part of your Facebook group, like you're always so quick to respond. And you went live the other day when I had a question about an ebook and you were just like, listen, this is what it is. So I want you to tell people about what you have going on to support others who are trying to write,
yeah.
whether it's for healing or just period. I want people to know how to find you, what you do, just go for it.
Yeah, so you can find me on firstbookdone.com is where you can find the program that I literally walk people through from A to Z how to write and self-publish your book. So you get all the tools, how to edit it, how to get a great book cover, how to get it published, how to make money with it. All of that stuff is in the First Book Done program. Literally, I'm telling you, everything that I've known in the last 7 years is in this course, and it's been helping a lot of people birth a lot
Yes.
of amazing books. Honestly, I couldn't write a book on daddy issues. I couldn't write a book on reclaiming your visibility for Black fatherhood. I couldn't write a book on
Mm,
her cage was her cocoon, where this one young lady talks about all the cages that she faces as a woman entrepreneur and
mm,
how her working as a prison administrator allowed her to see cages from a different perspective and
mm,
how to navigate through those and be able to be even content knowing that if I'm in prison and
mhm.
I am doing some rehabilitation, I'm not here for long, but I need to do the work while I'm here versus being fussy about being in the cage.
Oh, I
right? So
love
she's
that.
understood. So that was an amazing book.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the stuff has come from it. I've got a chance to meet a lot of cool people like yourself
Mm-hmm.
through providing the service. So firstbookdone.com is where you'll find out about my program. The group that you're talking about is if you go to facebook.com/groups/firstbookdone, that would be the link to like join that group. Super cool. I'll get to meet a lot of dope people on there.
Mm-hmm.
If you're typing it, I could say it one more time. It's
I got you.
facebook.com.
Oh.
Yeah, facebook.com/groups with an S
Mhm.
slash first book done. And that's the group where they could go and request to be a part of this amazing community of people who are all looking to go and publish their books on so many different topics. So that's another way you can reach me. And then also on social media, you can reach
Of
out to me on
course.
there. There you go. Just yeah. So
Oh,
on my social
this one.
media, it's at
This is
GOD,
first book
and then the
done.
first book done, just
Yes.
without the spaces. When you
Yes.
guys are typing it in, that's how you would go and find the Facebook group that
Mm-hmm.
we have, where I'm answering questions. This morning, I actually went live and talked about why I strongly suggest crowdfunding as a resource for you to go and use when you're coming out with your book.
I saw
And
that. I have to
and,
go
and
back and watch it.
you gotta watch it.
Yeah,
That
I'm gonna go
one.
back. Mm-hmm.
Oh my
I was
goodness.
in section and my phone went off, and I was like, "Oh crap, I'm gonna miss it."
I know. I went on. I know normally you're free like around 11, 12 ish,
Yeah,
and
my
I was
lunch
on there
break.
like
Right.
9:30. Yeah, I was
You
around like
was. I was like,
9:30.
Jill, you know
I
I'm at
was there a
work.
little early. I was a little early. I had a little writer's block, and I had a little productivity block, so I needed to do a
Okay.
little something different. So I went on live to give myself a
Yes.
little bit of momentum to get started.
Yes. I love how you put
I'm
that.
telling you, man. I eat what I cook, so
Okay.
I needed it for myself. I needed it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
But Don, this has been dope. I got a
Yes.
question for you.
What's up? Oh
I
Lord.
got a question for you, even though it's your couch. But I got a question for you.
I'm ready.
What would you? One of the things that I truly admire about you is your willingness to two things. Your
Mm-hmm.
willingness to throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks,
Just see.
and then yeah, like so you do that a lot. And then the other side of it is how you are able to bounce back from defeat so quickly.
Child, listen. Are you asking me how I do that?
Yes, yes. I want
Woo!
the people need to know a little behind the scenes. Like the
Yes.
therapist has
Yes.
tools.
She
And what does that
does.
look like for you?
One of the people are here right now, Chrislyn Howard. Hey, sis. She is my colleague and good friend over the last year. We have become closer in the recent months, having finally been able to meet in person. But she is part of my tribe. I have specific people in my tribe. And when I came and talked to your masterclass, was it a couple weeks
Yeah, yeah,
ago?
yeah. Yep.
I talked about the executive board of Christian. And so you
Mm-hmm.
are on the executive board. Chrislyn is one of them, along with some other close friends that I have, because Chrislyn got the phone call. Like, I had to cry to her Monday because one of my people dropped out of the Daddy Issues Healing Circle, which
Yeah.
is the group based on my book. So I had 3 women, and I'm like, oh, the group is really fragile. So if somebody drops out, it's over. But she actually told me something that you mentioned earlier, which is somebody needs your message. You have committed to this group, whether it's 2 people or just one, and you do like an individual thing. There's somebody out there that's been waiting for this to get going. And so I said, you know what? You're right. We're just gonna go. And I'm really trying to scale back from like the whole comparison thing, because I'm watching so many dope people do amazing things, and I'm like, oh, what about me? Is Christian looking okay on the couch? Like, is it all right? And I have a supportive husband who also is like, it's okay, babe. In his deep manly voice, he's like, I mean, just keep going, you're going to be okay. And my son, who I wish I had my notebook here, but my son, who's 10, you met right before, Carter, um,
Yeah.
he wrote a business plan for me the other day, and he always sees the silver lining. So he's like, well, your client didn't show up, did you charge a no-show fee? All right, well, we can still have money. He just says little stuff like
That's
that that you don't think
hilarious.
about.
Wow.
Carter is very
Wow.
enterprising, and so having, I think, the people around me say, Christian, keep going, you said you was going to do this thing, keep going, because there's always something I learned out of like the pain of it. And I had to really sit with that thing, though, Jew. I was like, dang, this is embarrassing to say that I have just two people in the group. But why would that be embarrassing? It's because, like, on social media, we find ourselves performing so much. And so it's just one of those
Jeez.
things where it's
Stop
like,
it, Christian.
you
Stop
know,
it.
you know what it
You get
is.
it in the in the middle of my therapy session that I had with my therapist yesterday. Do
I'm
not get
telling
in my
you.
business.
I'm
Do
telling
not
you,
get
I
in
need to
my
sit on the couch
business.
too. I need to get out. I need to
Oh
get
my
her Kim back in my
gosh.
business and get on Kim's couch, because she's like, "Are you doing this for yourself? Or are you doing this for the kingdom? Like, what's happening? Why are you so worried about everybody else?" So I am now. I had to regroup. I'm doing this group with the three of us together. We are getting it in, and it's going to be just as effective because the material is good regardless. And so and I found that it's good with an intimate space of, group of people anyway, to really be able to kind of talk everything through and give the book and the time justice. So
Hmm.
for the next 7 weeks now, we're going to meet, we're going to roll with it. And that is, I think, what is a huge piece of it, is getting out of my own head about stuff and having my team around me, because I cried. I ain't gonna say I didn't cry. I was like, oh my God, I have to pull it back again. So I'm still putting myself out here. We may have one or two people live and I get a bunch of replays later, but I
Yeah,
still give it the same energy because I know I believe in the mission. So, like, believing in your message, I think, is really what's super, super important. And I have to remember why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so I know that it's going to finally get the fruits that I think it's supposed to birth. And I've already heard how many people have been helped by my book. So I'm like, Christian, why are you going to stop? Like, it's okay. Even
yeah,
if two people see you, it's fine. And I mean, you being a part of so many different projects too, like, you have had your hand in changing a life too. And so that to me is like my battery. It keeps my battery going. It's just knowing that
got
what
it.
I'm doing is helping people. So I'm gonna keep it going, because you already know, like you said, I would just try stuff and just see. Like, I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know
but
what's gonna happen.
where did that spirit come from? Because I think
Mm-hmm.
there's a certain amount of people who are very risk averse.
Yes.
What and just for clarity of those who are watching this, she
Mm-hmm.
doesn't take risk recklessly. She does take
Right.
risk though. But it's
They're
not like, yo,
strategic.
hey man, yeah, it's very strategic. It's not like, hey, jump out of a plane, Christian. Where the
No,
plane at? Like, no, she ain't doing that.
no,
Like, but
that's not
like,
me.
when did you first
Mm-hmm.
um realize that that was something, a thing for you, like that, like I'm a
I'm just
like
gonna try
I
stuff.
know I know to I know it to be a core value of yours.
Mm-hmm.
I know if I tell you something, which is why you're very teachable, if I tell you something, I know you're gonna try it. It's not like,
Mm-hmm.
she ain't gonna do nothing with it, like I already know.
Mm-hmm.
But when did you know that that's just the Christian way?
Oh, I'm about to blow y'all's minds. It's so ironic because I get that from my daddy.
Hold up.
I know. Isn't that crazy? What I try not to talk about him much, because the false narrative among some even family members is that this book is like a scathing memoir of Christian being mad at her father. That is not what this book is. And if y'all looking for the tea, then find something else to read. But one thing I will say about him is that Daddy is also very teachable and is okay with the risk, because his drive is like, I'm all about winning. I'm gonna win. That's what Daddy is driven by. I'm gonna win. And when I grew up watching him, when my parents were still married, he would do things like all these different business ventures, which I admired and loved so much. And I think I wrote it in my book. We used to play this game where I would say, "Okay, Daddy, I have an invention." And I would just say, I'm going to do this. And he would say, okay, well, how are you going to do it? What is this going to look like? And we would just play this game. He would humor me. And I'm like maybe 4 or 5 and like all the way up until probably 10. Daddy, I have this thing. I'm going to try it. Let's just see. And so because I watched him do it. And ironically, he's also a writer. And I was so proud and like, oh my God, my daddy wrote a book and I'm holding it in my hand. And so I've seen him do things for himself. And I would say that he's probably my first example of just like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, just do it. And relearning who God is and having a different relationship with him than I did when I was a kid. knowing that he's got me regardless and reminding myself of those times, because if I do throw stuff to the wall and it doesn't stick, then I'm going to get something out of it. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's part of what my journey has been, and what my mindset is, how it's like shaped and my values have been shaped, is because I'm like, well, Christian, you're going to be fine regardless. Like, you lost certain relationships that were hurtful, but the relationship that matters, this one, is intact. It's way better than what it used to be. And everything falls into place because I've had certain people come into my life that have helped support me and guide me in certain ways. I'm married to one that is amazing. You know what I'm saying? And like, in his own special way, says things to me. And sometimes I'm annoyed, but he's usually right. Like, that is
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
value. So, and he's like, well, babe, if it didn't work this time, what you gonna do? And I have my kids, so it's all like, it's a formula. And that's what I think, even with people, kind of, one thing I do want to say about writing a book, especially like this one, like, we kind of pour ourselves onto the page, especially if it's nonfiction. I feel like my voice is stronger when I just write about the realness and I'm transparent. And that can be a scary part of it. But again, when you see that this is actually someone else is going through your story, and they can appreciate what you've gone through, then I'm like, okay, well, let me just try this thing, because this thing worked. I figured this out,
Mm-hmm.
and here we are.
Right.
So let's just see. So I think
Yeah.
that's kind of part of where that attitude comes from, and that risk taking comes from. A lot of me transcending daddy issues, like I say, is really starting to believe in myself. And what we need are published books and putting things on paper and reinforcing those ideas that you have in your head, and seeing that you can actually do it. It's like, what, put one foot in front of the other. We see that we can stand up on 2 feet, and it's like, well, dang, what can I do now? Now I feel like, when I wrote this and published it, I'm like, oh, I wrote a book. I can do anything. Okay, period. Don't
Yeah.
say nothing. That's it.
Nah, you're right. You're right. I think
Yes.
that's why I'm so adamant about people doing it, because it's like a marathon, right? The person runs a,
Mm-hmm.
it's just a wall that you didn't think you could break. But
Mm-hmm.
once you break that wall, you're like, oh snap, like all the walls are now dismissed. Like, you're
Yeah.
like, yo, none of these walls matter
See,
anymore,
it's
because it's like
gone. Everything.
y'all all gonna get this work, because I knocked that wall. So now this wall, you're gonna get it. Like, you should have told the first wall, yo, we riding on this, because if she breaks this wall down, she coming for us. Right.
Okay.
And I think that's that narrative that is like, yo, if I could just get that first one. That's why, honestly, like, I was overthinking what to call my program. And my
Mm-hmm.
mentor told me, Gio, like, what do you really do? And I was like, I'm gonna help someone get their first book done. And he was like, just call it that.
I
And I was
love
like,
that.
it can't be that easy. I was like, can't be that easy. They're like, just
Mm-hmm.
call it first book done. And I was like, could it really be that easy? Like, and I did it, and then it resonated with so many other people, because now,
Yes.
once I literally have someone right now writing a book, and he was like, oh, he's almost done. He's like 75% done. And he's
Mm-hmm.
already telling me, Gio, the second book is already in my head.
Done.
The
Right.
second book is already, and I already, yeah, he's like, yo, the second book, oh, I see it so clear right now, bro. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that I'm where I'm at now, oh my, I need to finish this book so I can get the next one. The next one's gonna be
Mm-hmm.
crazy. And I know
Mm-hmm.
you are also in the process of starting your second book, right? And
Yeah.
so
Mm-hmm.
it's like that momentum that come when you knock that first domino down, every other domino goes, ah, shucks.
Yep.
The wall
She
of defense
coming.
is gone, it's down. She coming.
Mm-hmm.
Who
Mm-hmm.
let her in? Who let her in? And so that's the reason why I want people to do it, is because 97% of people believe, 81% of people believe that they have a book inside of them.
Mm-hmm.
97% of people start writing the book and never finish it at all.
Mm.
So when
Dang.
I'm on the thought process of, I can help you do something that would actually make you be a part of the 3%, and it's actually a positive thing.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, it's like, hey, well, I don't want to be a minority. Well, you're the minority if you wrote a book,
Right.
because the majority don't ever finish.
Mm-hmm.
So I want you to own it. And then when you see it's an empowering thing that, oh, I'm a minority, it's no longer, you don't take the 5 letters in the beginning of minority and say, oh, it's minor. No, you're not minor.
Mm.
It's actually major, that
Mm-hmm.
minor thing. So it's just a chance to be able to help people redefine whatever it is that they're going through.
Yes, I'm so pumped. Y'all, I'm full per usual after talking to Gio. I can't wait. I can't wait to watch this replay and get snippets and share.
Yeah,
I'm super
yeah.
pumped.
Comment on it. I can't wait for this. I think we've just talked a lot
Mhm.
about the writing process, but the thing, as always, comes back to it's so holistic. You know, it's not.
Mhm.
It's writing, but then you're like, I think I could actually meet the best version of myself at the end of whatever this is. And that's the
Absolutely.
part that's so exciting. It's like, yo, I'm about to introduce you to some dope person. And you're like,
Mhm.
what's her name? And I'm like, it's crazy. She has your name. Like that, it's
For
the
real?
same name as yours, right? And you're like, what? And you're like, nah, yeah, I'm about to introduce you to somebody, and you won't
Mhm.
believe this. You're gonna think I'm making this up, but she got the same last name as you too. And you're
That's
like, no way.
bananas.
And that's bananas. And guess what? I know you're thinking that your two in a row can't possibly get three.
Mhm.
Her son is 10 years old and his name is Carter. And you're like, nah, Gio, now you playing. I
Now
think I
you just
know her.
playing?
You do know her. It's you.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
so it's just introducing you to that other version of you.
Oh, I think that's such a sweet way to end it. You're introducing yourself to the better version of you, a better version of you once you go through this process.
100%.
AKA like another step towards being healed and whole. Period. Oh, I'm so pumped. I got to bring you back because I am now thinking about how like of fiction versus nonfiction would work in this process, like how that looks. But save it for next
That
time.
is that. Yeah, no, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm done. I'm done.
You guys, thank you so much for sitting with me, Gia. I hope you guys have enjoyed. I have some kiddos to go put to bed and read nighttime stories too, speaking of books. So I'm going to go do that. And y'all, please replay, share, tag us, let us know what you think in the comments when you watch the replay. I have been your girl, Christian Jackson, the daddy issues expert. I will see you guys next week. Thank you for joining.
Take
Bye.
care.